Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Awaken the World live on the 4th of December in the year of Oh My God 2020. It is 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we are going to talk about love, and we've added a few things to that list as well. So let's get right to it. Hello, hello, hello. We're going to give everyone a minute or two to get on. And, when I was thinking about this subject, I love the 80s music. I really do. I gotta say, I just do. And, I was 20 at the beginning of the 80s, and that was a great time to be 20 years old. And, of course, uh, both, um, it's David Bowie's Modern Love, and of course Hall and Oates' Modern Love also came to mind, and I had to actually play them both and do some dancing and singing around the living room. So, first of all, as always, let me relay to you my infinite love for you. You know, you are part of me and I am part of you. And when you truly see that in another, when you truly love yourself, you're able to love freely. And we're going to talk about all sorts of things tonight. And one of the big things we're going to talk about is, of course, love. But I think it's really important that we deal with a few other things that have come up over and over and over again with various group members I've been dealing with, as well as a lot of other people who get in contact with me for help. So I want to have a little review, first of all, about perceptions. And here's how simple it is. You have a choice. You really do. You can choose what to think. You can't choose what someone else thinks. You can't choose how someone else chooses to behave. You can't decide how they should or should not be. I mean, you can go ahead and try to do all those things, but you're just going to make yourself miserable. You see, there's something in this universe called free will. And what that means is everyone's entitled to do whatever they want. The part you don't hear is that and reap the consequences of your choices and your actions and your thoughts and your words. This is how it works. Perceptions are nothing more than that little tiny point of view. And to think that your perceptions are truth is not such a good idea. Because let's face it, it's just a perception. And someone else with another perception, how do you decide that yours is somehow more truthful than theirs? Allow them to have their perception. Whatever perception they have will guide how they react to you, how they see you. In other words, nothing is personal. Because even our perceptions have to be taken through the egoic being. So no matter how nice you are to someone, their perception may be you're miserable. Why would you be upset with that? It has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. This holds true for us too. Whenever our perceptions are causing us to feel bad, we really need to take a look at our perceptions and see where we're kidding ourselves. The problem is, of course, we like to listen and buy into what the mind says. So once the mind has its perception focused on the idea that something is bad, it's going to have a really hard time pulling away from that. Because as soon as it makes it bad, it begins to identify with it and incorporates that badness into it. And then it makes use of that through its personality, through its character. So people who feel they've been victimized can often maintain that victim mentality their entire lives. Always feel like the world's against them in some way, or that they're being put upon in some way by life. So when it comes to perceptions, you really need to understand that you're always faced with a choice. And your choice should always be loving yourself. And that's where we're going to end up, is in the field of love. But if your perceptions are not feeling good, look at them closely. See where you're kidding yourself. Be willing to take on new perceptions. Or better yet, try to hold no perception at all. Just watch, observe, and let it be. This is a very important one that came up today, and I really think it plays into this whole thing about love and perceptions and what love is and is not, and we should maybe take some time with this too. So we're going to talk about the idea of truth. Well, sorry, not truth, trust, which we suppose is based in truth, but it's not. We're going to talk about the concept of trust. And we're also going to talk a little bit more about the idea of promises, because trust and promises are fairly closely related. And again, I don't want to take a lot of time with this because I really want to move on to love, but this is really, really important, so we're going to give it its due. So here's the deal. I was asked today, as a matter of fact, this person had actually stated to me that it was not a good idea to trust everybody. And I, with a little bit of indignation, said, why not? Why would you not trust everyone around you? And what we need to really understand about trust, just like love, they're not two-way streets. I'm sorry, you'd all like to believe it, but they're not. They're not two-way streets. You either choose to trust or you choose to not trust. Your choice to trust or not trust has absolutely no bearing on whether someone will turn out to be trustworthy or not trustworthy. And as a matter of fact, I've got a couple questions for you around that. Oftentimes, when we look at someone, especially if it's a relationship partner, and we look them in the eye and we say, I trust you, what we really mean underneath those words, the underlying subconscious concern or fear is, don't you dare hurt me. Right? I'm vulnerable now because I trust you. That leaves me vulnerable in some way. Or I'm vulnerable because I love you and you could hurt me. If I said what I honestly think about these things. You always have a choice in life, as you do with your perceptions, whether to choose to trust or not to trust. Trust is a state of being that belongs to the individual who chooses to trust. It has nothing to do with anybody else or whether they turn out to be trustworthy or not trustworthy. And that can be really hard to digest and really hard to accept because, of course, a lot of people think trust is a two-way street, just like love. Neither one of them are. Trust needs nothing in return. Love needs nothing in return. Now, wrapped up with trust is the idea of promises. For example, one of the big promises that gets broken quite often is the promise at marriage, the vows, the promises made before God. We really tend to get upset and feel trust has been broken when somebody breaks a promise with us. And I would ask you, why would you want someone who no longer feels honestly like keeping a promise to keep a promise? Because the minute you force them to keep that promise, you're trying to exercise your will over top of their free will. And that is doomed to fail. The control you perceive you have externally may look real, but it will not last. Why would you ever want to hold anyone to a promise that they feel they can no longer keep? This idea of trust and promises made is all tied together. And the number of people I know who stay together in a marriage because of the promise made, when the relationship is clearly over. We make the most ridiculous promises in order to get what we want. And We love to hold people to their promises. We say, well, we're holding them to their word. And if their word doesn't turn out to be good, well, we're mad at them. They're bad. It's not about them. It's always about you. Choosing to trust is a choice, but it's a one-way street. It does not require, nor does it govern, whether the other person is going to be trustworthy or not. And as I said, it's not about them. But you're choosing to trust and choosing to live in a world that is trustworthy will show you trustworthiness. If you choose not to trust, the universe says, as you wish. You'll have all sorts of problems with not trusting and people not being trustworthy. But keep in mind that when we use those words, I trust you, especially when we're talking relationships, what we really mean is, don't you dare hurt me. And that's a sign of a codependency. Or at least a dependency on one side of the relationship. You know, 6 years ago, when I first met Kelly, I said to her quite clearly, I said, there's no such thing as forever. People are free to adapt and grow and evolve, and if that point is ever reached where the relationship, in whatever form it is no longer functioning, its purpose has been fulfilled, then why would I want to prevent you from moving on and doing whatever it is you wanted to do? Where the trust comes in, for example, would be in communication. And that too is one way. You can choose to be communicative, but you can't not demand that someone else be communicative in return, especially when it comes to issues about trust. Promises, again, very similar to trust. Why would you ever want to hold someone to a promise that they don't want to keep anymore? Doesn't it feel much better for you to let it go? To not hold it against them in some way, to not try and assert your will and make sure that they fulfill that promise, because it will become dysfunctional. Okay, there's trust, perceptions kind of off to the side. Let's talk about the big one. Let's talk about love. And the first thing that you really, really need to understand about love is not dependent on the other. Love is dependent on your recognition of yourself within the other. That's it. Love needs no return. I exist in an endless wellspring of love that arises from within me. So do you. This state of being is what's available to every one of us, and it is what every one of us is. Love itself personified. You are the source of love in your life, and the love you give out, you give in the same way, I would hope, that the Creator gives to you, without demand in return. That was one of my biggest problems with Christianity all those years ago when I started in the Catholic faith as a young child. And that was the concept that God's love was conditional, that God just didn't love me, but He only loved me if I did what I was supposed to do. That's not love. That's the conditional love we've been taught. My video stream is acting up on me, so if it fails and jumps off, I do apologize. We are going to post this to YouTube after. The Creator I've come to know is pure infinite love, and that love says only one thing: as you wish. It does not require any love to be returned, because in the instant you give true love, you receive that love back to yourself in the process. It can't be avoided. Unfortunately, a lot of people use the word love to mean trade. In other words, I'll love you. In other words, I'll give you what you think you need, and you love me back. You give me what I think I need. Sooner or later, one side of that relationship will let that go. One side of the relationship won't meet up to the expectation anymore. And then you'll see how quickly what was only masquerading of love disintegrates and becomes something far worse. Love is a one-way street. You choose to love. And the only way you can truly love is to start by loving yourself. There is nothing wrong with you in this present moment. Right now, you're exactly the person you need to be. You're in exactly the right situation in your life. You're in exactly the right state to learn and grow and evolve. And life is doing this out of a state of love. And you are the personification of that love. So, especially in this holiday season, when our perceptions get the best of us a lot of times, as I said to one group member today, if Christmas is on a Tuesday, it's a problem. Only if it's Christmas, because if it was any other Tuesday, it would be all right. We do the same thing with our concept of love as well. Allow yourself to love yourself freely. In the same way you are loved by your Creator. In the same way, I pray that you had loving parents who looked at you as you were and loved you as you were. There is nothing wrong with you right now. Everything is exactly as it should be. And you're being given an opportunity to be the love that you think you're missing. When you love yourself, you're not willing to entertain thoughts that cause you harm, thoughts that are dissonant with the body, thoughts that leave you feeling bad, negative feeling states. Those are all about reminding you, literally reminding you that those dissonant thoughts aren't the truth of your existence. Love yourself enough to guard your thoughts and to be willing to change your perceptions. I'll tell you a brief story about what happened today, and of course I'm not going to let you know which group member, but I was talking to a group member yesterday, and I was extremely busy yesterday, but of course I made the time for them. And they picked up on the fact that I was very busy. And today when I spoke to the same group member, their perception was I didn't have time for them. And of course that was a negative perception. So I immediately said, well, what if your perception was, despite how busy Garhen was, he still made time for me? And a little light bulb went on. And they had a real world right in their face example how the thought created a whole reality around the perception. And this is what we do to ourselves all the time. So I would invite you to love yourself enough to mind your thoughts and make sure your thoughts are loving yourself. Another thing that you need to do, and promise me you're going to do this at least once every day, do one act that is truly loving. Whether it's taking that nice hot bath you wanted with some Epsom salts and some essential oils and candles and soft music, as I love to do. Or perhaps it's just taking 5 minutes for yourself in the backyard or going for a walk in the woods. Whatever the case may be, every single day, do one thing to love yourself. Because until you love yourself fully, until you understand you are the source of love, you will always seek to fulfill what you feel you don't have, what you're missing outside of yourself. And you came here with everything. You were not incomplete. You weren't missing anything. The minute you popped out of your mother's womb, or that test tube, or in my case, a big giant shell, whatever it was, you were whole and complete the moment you arrived. You're everything you need to be, and you always will be everything you need to be. Allow yourself to love freely by loving yourself. Love yourself fully. Understand that when you love yourself fully, your love radiates out to others and embraces them with a warmth and healing in that alone. And you will find love will come to you. When you stop needing love and start radiating the vibration of love, you can't help but attract that same vibration back to you. Much love to you. Namaste. Again, I apologize for the video problems with Facebook. This will be going on YouTube within a half an hour or so. As always, my deepest love, my recognition of you in me and me in you. Take care. Don't allow your perceptions to get carried away. Try to keep yourself focused and understand that you are indeed a powerful spiritual being here having a human experience. Again, all my love. Namaste and good night.